this computer. Okay, recording. Right. So if any of you don't know, that's Steve Martin. There is a movie called The Man with Two Brains. I advise you to watch it and any other movie made. Brilliant. So this is a group therapy session. Can you all see the slides as well? So this is group therapy. So in a group therapy, this is an unscripted session, whereas a lot of the webinars are scripted. So I think I'm maybe like the love child of Donald Trump and Joe Biden at the moment. I could literally say anything. And the recording started. Thank you. Right. I've already got 2 questions in the Q&A. What I'll do later on, I will bring the chat up as we start chatting. So the idea behind a group therapy is to have a more loose, open discussion rather than me just ranting on about stuff. And this is quite a personal one for me. If I can go to the next slide. Right. So, one of the things I see in traders, everybody wants to trade the S&P or the NASDAQ or crude, but pretty much the S&P. And I've kind of been okay with it. I mean, you can't really change people. But what I want to do today is I want to just put a bit more color around that and try and give you maybe some food for thought. So I think we can all agree that what we do for a living is generally something we're good at. So most people are doing something they're fairly good at. I say that because if you weren't, you get fired. Or you might be one of those enlightened souls that does something because you want to avoid corporate BS. There's one guy I was working with last year, and he worked on a farm, and he drove tractors around, and he was also a Viking, or not like a Viking, and he was just doing that because he didn't want the BS. So there are people like that. But like, even if you're a fighter pilot, being a fighter pilot isn't your skill. And it's like, So I'm going to try and go work through that today. So to kick it off, what we're going to do is we're going to look at 2 extremes of personality types or personality disorders or disadvantages for them, people with ADHD and dyslexia, just to kind of highlight 2 extremes of personalities. And actually, we're going to look at the quirks and perks of those conditions. But I'm not sure I agree they're conditions. I'm not sure at the moment where I stand. So recently I got diagnosed with ADHD, and it's been really funny because there's been so many people say, wow, Pete's always there. He's like, really like, I don't understand how he can do it. I don't understand why he's like, it's like, he's always there when we ask him a question, he's always there. And partly is because I've got ADHD. I'm hyperactive. So according to my doctor, I put the H into ADHD, right? And Ahmed, when you said about hyperactive, it's just, there are so many people with this, right? That I don't even think it's a condition. I think it's 1 in 50 people, right? So, but and Ahmed's saying, I got to look at the chat. Ahmed's saying, to be honest, I thought you might have it. Everyone, look at this. I knew you're ADHD. It's like when you know you've got it and it's explained to you, you can spot each other a mile off. It's like being in a secret club. Now, some people say this is a mental disorder, but so the way I can explain it from my perspective is that like most people, now maximum productive. Now, there's plenty of downsides, Ahmed, right? There's plenty of downsides to this, and I can tell you what they are. So if they say it's a mental disorder or a neurological condition, for me, the way I see it, most people have got 1 brain, right? And I've got 3 small ones. And each of those 3 small brains needs to be entertained at the same time. Now, remember, I'm telling you this, I'm giving you extremes of personality types, right? So that you can kind of hone in on your own. So if you imagine you've got 3 small brains and each one needs entertaining at the same time, every time my parents went to meet teachers at school, we used to have parents' evening, I'd hide under the sofa when they got back because I would always get either a shouting out or a beating because the teacher always said, he's not listening. He doesn't pay attention. He could do better. But my version of listening in school was listening to teacher for 1 brain, fidget and doodle with another, think up dumb jokes to tell the kid next to me with another brain. That was me listening. That was me paying attention. If I didn't do these 2 other things, I couldn't listen to the teacher. Now, that didn't go down well. We didn't really have ADHD at that point. And but also there are some focus and concentration issues. I I've got a tendency to start a lot of things and not finish some. Other people have the ability to, aren't able to start things. Now, the ADD, I think, is like a commonality. It's a focus thing. The H is hyperactive. So your ADD and ADHD is pretty much the same thing. But the H, as anyone that works with me knows, is like when I wake up in the morning, I am on. So that's it. I'm on. I've got two modes, on and off. And I remember once being in at a conference in Penang, and it was a trade show in Penang, and we had a stand in this trade show in Penang, and we were driving there at 7:00 in the morning, and somebody turned around and said, "Pete, are you always like this in the morning?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just always like this all the time. What do you mean? What are you saying? Well, why are you so awake?" And I'm like, "Well, that's the way I am." But at that point, didn't know. But so I am on the moment my eyes open, and but my brain can be awake even when my body's tired. So without knowing this for 50 years, I was kind of managing my condition with two things. I was running. So every day I ran 5 kilometers, right? Even in balmy Thailand, I would sometimes I stopped later on, like, as I hit my, get my late 40s, I wouldn't run when it was like 80% humidity or 43 degrees Celsius. It was a bit dangerous. Yeah. 2 speeds, 0 and 4 miles an hour. So running did something for me. It like calmed me down. And and then also alcohol, 3 beers a night. So I don't like to drink 10 beers, but if I drink 3 beers, it does something. And according to my doctor, he says alcohol's got something similar with Ritalin. So I'm actually here with you today without having my 3 beers, which is a disappointment. But basically, alcohol helps me focus. Now, what alcohol does to me and what it does to people without ADHD is different. But if I have 3, that's at 3 beers. If I have 10 beers, I'll be the same as everybody else. Anyway, see with this, I'll come back to trading. So when COVID hit, gyms closed. It was too hot to run outside. And I stopped running. And I really went all wonky. And I got this. I've heard a lot of people talk about this COVID malaise or COVID depression. But I think so many people got hit with a mental condition or a depression or whatever during COVID, partly through not being able to go out, partly through seeing all those businesses get closed. Maria's saying, "I think you just fixed my marriage." That's hilarious. Some of his comments. Let me put the comments up, man. This is kind of funny. So, but basically it was kind of depression, but I think partly it took away the running, which was leveling out the ADHD. And I think it'll hit us all in some way. So I would say one of the first things, and this is an absolutely trading advice, unless you've like cleansed yourself or have had a sort of mental reset from what COVID did to you, I would say it's probably still bugging you now and you need to do something. You need to go on holiday. You need to get a hobby. You need to just do something to have like a line in the sand between that kind of depressed or like malaise or lazy or whatever it did to you condition, where you need to be a trader, because you need to be switched on to be a trader. And I can tell you at the end of February, I wasn't switched on, right? So I'm advising, first of all, I mean, do any of you feel that you've got like, that COVID's done something to you and it's left you a bit in the like gloomy? Or are you like, I mean, who feels gloomy still after COVID, after the lockdowns and all that stuff? Anyone? I love being knocked down, Mike. Totally, I messed up. Andrew, there's some, yeah. I had COVID in February as well. And when I say COVID, I mean, I don't mean having COVID. I mean, just that whole episode, it gave people a lot of, I wouldn't say depression, but then I don't know what depression is. Anyway, so what I did was a bit extreme, but I do this all the time. So my solution, and something I do all the time, or once a year, was a place called New Leaf Wellness, which is it's like one of these detox places where you have to have colonic irrigation every day and you don't eat anything and you only have juice. And generally speaking, my wife sends me there every year when I get too chubby. So every year, my wife puts her arms around me and her fingers don't meet. And she says, "Pete, you need to go to Samui." So what I do is I go there and I usually do a 1-month juice fast. And I can work at the same time, right? And good for you if you don't feel any difference. And it's great. These detox places are great. You meet people that are amazing. I mean, who pays like $5,000 to go to a resort where there's no food? All you get is juices. you have to put like a liter of water and a liter of coffee in your butt every day, right? And then you have to exercise and you have to do all these things. You like the kind of people that go there, they're not right. And I like people like that. But it's not jail. And they call it detox, but it's basically fat camp. Like the amount of skinny people that enter the doors on their first day, it's like 1 to 2%. There are some skinny people who go to detox, but I don't get it. Right. And it's in Samui, so there's loads you can do. So you can take out the hot babes there. So this is a hot babe I met in Samui. Her name was Sandra. She is absolutely nuts. 70 years old, absolutely hilarious. Just decided to go and change her life. So it's like going on a diet with interesting people as a distraction. And do you guys want to see how fat I was or not? Or would you rather skip that? Who wants to see fat Pete? Why not? Right. So I've never been over 85 kilos. I usually sit about 78, 80 kilos, but I managed to get to 95 kilos. So this was me up on the left before, and this is on the right. This is where I look now. Right. Not pretty, but I went from 95 kilos, 78 kilos in 37 days, juice fast, and made the wife happy at the same time, but she's a wife. So she was happy for a week. Right. Now, I started off on fruit juices, 800 calories a day, but even then I was a hyperactive. And because I got ADHD, and one day I did a 9-kilometer run on the treadmill, went downstairs, and I was like, I bumped into the owner and I was bouncing around like a baby bunny. And she said, "You need to relax." I'm like, no, I've just been on a run. I'm full of endorphins. And she said, "No, Pete, you need to relax. You never stop." Right. I know I had ADHD December, Ming Yang. So basically I bought this clever watch with a heart rate monitor, and even the watch in 2 days was saying to me, "Dude, you need to calm down." So with ADHD at 51 years old, I didn't actually understand what relaxing was to other people. To me, relaxing was always had to involve doing something, right? But I didn't understand at that point. Yeah, DC, great stuff. You should see my sneakers. The next time. So at 51 years old, I didn't actually realize what relaxing was, right? But I did understand at that point that if I let my mental energy rule, at some point my body would fail, right? And so, so if you imagine if like I can stay up for like 16 hours, but maybe I'll have a heart attack one day because of that. So these are the quirks of my condition: not relaxing, not understanding what other people to do to relax, having to do 3 things at a time, These are negative things. One of the perks or the upsides of it was when I was 13, I was introduced to computers. And for some reason, boom, I just fell in love with this thing. So I was a kid at school. I joined the computer club. What a nerdy thing to do, join a computer club. But for some reason, when I'm doing anything around software and programming and that sort of thing, all my 3 brains work at one. And they also work like it's almost one and a bit. So I've always been the best, like wherever I worked, I was always the best developer. And people always used to say, "Oh, how can you've got so much potential, And like, dude, I'm not even trying. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just doing my job. And so it gave me a superpower. And everybody I've met with ADHD has got a superpower. So some of them just haven't found it yet, right? But I tell you what, it also makes me react, or it did make me react very abnormally and extremely to what were very minor things. So I used to overreact to stuff like really. And I was also terrible to work with. I was always thinking, and now Gonzalo is in here. Gonzalo, how terrible was I to work with? Go on, put it in the chat. We might as well tell. Go on, be honest. Gonzalo's gone to sleep. Right? Because I always thought, basically, I was always thinking, why can't I find great programmers? But I already found great programmers, but they just couldn't keep up with me because I'd got this really strange wiring in my head that just was hyperactive. Gonzalo is actually being politically correct and not answering, which is great, Gonzalo. But I was a bear. But since learning that I've got ADHD and since learning about these kind of side effects, I've learned to kind of live with it, because the best thing you can do. Hey, Jay, man, really nice to. Jay, you can tell him. Jay, you can tell him. You can tell him. Oh, and Gonzalo.
Oh, sorry, Pete. I was muted.
Go on.
Yeah,
Go
it was kind of difficult, but you changed a lot during these months, so that's.
Yeah, but how bad was I?
I'm gonna be politically correct now.
You don't need to say anymore because you just said it, right? So Jay,
Yeah.
Jay, apart from the colourful analogies, Jay, how much of a bear was I? Jay's shy, by the way. I think Jay's shy. Colourful analogies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a nightmare. I was an absolute nightmare. But once you realise why you're behaving like that, then actually you can, get around it. So the trick is to keep the quirks, to keep the perks, and lower down the quirky stuff. So when it came to trading, I started off long term, but I couldn't keep my attention. And I kind of looking back, I realised that that I kept getting shorter and shorter term was partly driven by this kind of personality defects that I've got, or personality type. So, especially with pullbacks and stuff, pullbacks to volume profiles, trade around the volume profile, I don't need to pay a lot of constant attention to anything to trade those. So I can kind of let my brain be kind of half wondering. I can have Facebook on one screen, be semi-focused, but then when it sees, when I see what looks like a layup approaching, I can zone in. And I can ultra focus for a short amount of time, like really ultra focus. And so I've got the play in mind, and I'm just like, I'm keeping my mind entertained on other stuff. And if I see something that says, okay, I'm good, I might be good to get in. I really focus, and I'm ultra focused, but I can't maintain it. I can maintain it for 30, 40 minutes maybe, but I don't need to, because I have my like low level focus. Wait for something to come on the volume profile, wait for something to come on a pullback. Then when it looks like it's time to go, I can engage, and I can keep the engagement for a while. I couldn't keep you for 8 hours, right? And it is lovely to see you here, Jay. And Jay's having a baby, by the way. Well, his wife is, but he had a hand in it or something. Anyway, that's a terrible thing. I didn't mean for that to come out that way. Anyway, I met another trader recently with ADHD. He reached out and he talked to me. And it's like almost instantly you can tell when somebody else has got it. And we got into the topic of music when trading, right? So now you all know the song Born to be Wild, like Born to be Wild, right? That is not a song most people would listen to or should listen to when they're trading. They'd be like, Born to be Wild, click, click, click. They would go mental, right? But this guy loves extreme hardcore punk, right? And the advice to him was absolutely, while you're trading, listen to that music, because that's going to occupy that one part of the brain and let the other part of your brain focus. But everybody else would go on a click frenzy if that music was playing, right? This guy, that would be what he needs to distract one of his brains. Now, I'm not a psychologist or pretending to be, right? But that's just like the kind of the way this is the way I see it, right? But yeah, hardcore punk. Now, before we go on to a bit more training, we'll just go one example, because what I wanted to do is, before I just talk about myself and ADHD, I wanted to just see, I just thought, well, what other mental disorder or neurological disorder can I think of that might have some upside? Or rather, can I think of? And I just typed in dyslexia upside, and I found all this stuff that are upsides of people with dyslexia. Now, I did not know that dyslexia had upsides. I thought it was all downside. I thought it was a problem and that people would have problems. I didn't know there were perks to that. But I didn't know what dyslexia was. I still really don't. I didn't know what ADHD was like 4 months ago, 5 months ago. So let's say you have ADHD or dyslexia and you take medicine for it. Are you going to lose these upsides? And that's my fear when they talk about, oh, do you want to try Ritalin and da-da-da? It's like, well, am I going to lose some of the upside if I do that? And maybe some of these upsides you can actually use in trading. And really, who says like ADHD is a disease or a neurological condition? Who says it needs to be fixed? Or even dyslexia. What? Maybe you just need a different approach to learning that schools don't supply. Because in the months of being diagnosed with ADHD, I've met loads of other people with the same condition or ADD, and it's easy if you can tell. But some are suffering, but most of them have looked out on the upside. Most of them have figured out what it is. So now I think really maybe it's all just shades of gray, right? And maybe we're all a little bit like off center, and maybe there isn't an ADHD, and maybe there isn't, well, maybe there's a dyslexia. I mean, you know that people get the words mixed around, but these examples are extreme. But we've all got quirks and perks, and we've all got like things we're good at and things we're bad at. And what this is really about today is to try and get us to think about dyslexia. Somebody just put up a link. Many strengths of dyslexia, which is also worth listening at reading. It's not just worth reading if you've got dyslexia. It's worth reading because just to know that, exactly the same thing. It's worth reading just to know that, like, we've all got like some upsides and downsides. It's like a seesaw, right? And if we can like use our upsides in trading, that's probably a good thing. So I got this other one. When I sent this email out, I got this back, and this just blows me away. So this is James, and I want to say thank you, James. He's not here today because he couldn't make it. I can't comprehend this. This is someone that's got a quirk. I can relate to him being different, but I can't even imagine what it's like. So he's saying most people have an inner monologue where they think in words by default, and he doesn't have it. That blows me away. Absolutely blows me away. I don't get it. I've heard of synesthesia, but I can understand the words when somebody's telling me what it is. That blows me away, right? So he thinks in concepts. Now, at some point, James must have found out that not everybody was like him. So I got to 51 before I found out not everybody was like me. I mean, everybody was telling me I was nuts, but no, everybody was telling me I was hyper, right? But I just thought I was, I just thought I had excess energy, right? So this guy's lucky, right? He was, wouldn't mind turning off the voice in my head sometimes. Yeah, Chris. I mean, there are times when you're stressed and you can't sleep because you're thinking something over and over in your head. What I get sometimes, in fact, I had it a few days ago. In fact, no, it was last night, actually. I went to bed last night. It was 8:30 in the evening, and I was yawning and tired, and I went to bed and I could not sleep, and I tossed and turned all night. And I've got this monitor that says I got 7 minutes of REM sleep, which should be like 45, but I couldn't sleep and my head was empty. There was nothing in my head. And it's like annoying, right? So, no, Marie, well, we'll come to you and your special superpowers. We've got to find them first. So anyway, but I just imagine thinking just in non-verbal concepts. I don't get it. So what I want to do now is I'm going to ask you to type in a yes, type in a Y if you think you are 100% normal, regular person, and type in a hell no if you think one of the printers was low on ink when they printed you out. Let me see. Who's just completely normal? Jay, we know you're not. We know Jay's not. Oh, dear. We know Jay's not normal because he asked me for a... Okay, so if we're not normal. So my son was in a special school for a year and a half because I know my dad's got ADHD because he's a fruitcake, but can do the Times crossword in 5 minutes, right? My son's got ADD, I believe, because he can't finish anything. And we've had to... Initially, they kicked him out of school at 4 years old. And they told us he'd never be able to do anything, never be able to look after himself, never be able to go to university. Then he went to a special school for a year and a half, which was brilliant. Went to regular school then. 2 years after that, we had to have like an intervention when he was struggling because he needed he needed to be given methods to adjust for like standard style of teaching. And at 18, he nearly failed his international baccalaureate course because his head just got into knots. So basically got into his position where he had coursework to do. He had studying to do. He couldn't do any of it. He couldn't do it. He couldn't get started. He needed a mentor and he got through it and he passed and got a good grade. And now he's about to go to Mahidol University in Thailand, which is arguably the best music university in Thailand. And he just needed a nudge in the right direction. And he's won music awards. He's got his own small business. He plays drums, piano, guitar. He seems normal, but that's because he needed techniques to kind of handle the real world. And I imagine that James had like a similar struggle initially. Now, so we're all different, right? We've all got perks and quirks, and we're going to actually look into some of your own at the minute. So we'll just look at another couple of extreme examples. And I don't think we really need to say that the goldfish has got short-term memory, so it would be better scalper. I mean, my memory is terrible. If I can't remember birthdays, but I can remember, I pretty much remember all the lines of code in the Jigsaw app, which is 1 million. I can, but ask me to remember a birthday. I couldn't do that. It took me like 14 years to remember my wife's birthday, and I'm surprised I didn't get divorced by that time. So here's the thing, like when you come to trading, what a lot of people do is they try to bring their job to trading, right? So, right, I'm an accountant, so I'm going to trade like this, right? So the worst people at this, do we have any pilots in the room? Yep. Right. You're the worst traders initially. Oh my God, they're terrible because they want a dashboard, a cockpit, because they're trying to fly the market. But the market is not a 747. So I'm going to ask some questions now. And I will put this up here. Not sure if that will be, I'm not sure if the chat will be on the recording, but let's see. Fixing a helicopter. So, can somebody tells me what makes a pilot a pilot? I'm going to give you a couple of things, right? I think pilots, what makes a pilot want to be a pilot? So pilots, tell us why you want to be a pilot. Control. Free holiday. Jay, you're not a pilot. As you pilots think about this, I think you've got to have quite a lack of fear, right? Because I wouldn't want to be going up. You're scared of flying, so you become a pilot. Oh my good Lord. Good understanding of statistics, sense of adventure, right? How about a bit of an inner child? I mean, you're telling me somebody, so like a fireman. Everybody who's a fireman must have wanted to be a fireman since they were 9. You know, I wouldn't be a fireman since I was 5, but I grew out of it. And I think pilots kind of don't. Spatial awareness. But like, it doesn't matter how much you want to be a pilot or why, right? What makes them let you be a pilot? So pilots, why did they give you the job? How did you get to be a pilot? What were the skills you had? Sleeping in a chair. No, but like, do you know what I mean? There's reasons that you want to be a pilot, but there's reasons that they gave you the job. I mean, what was the qualification? Oh, nobody wants to answer that. Okay, we must have some pretty good eyesight. Thank you, Marcos, for stating the obvious. Military aptitude testing. So aptitude testing, okay, navigational skills. William, do you know what they were looking for in the aptitude testing? Yeah, focus under pressure. And Charles, Charles, how did they test you were focused under pressure? So we've got William. I'd like to I have no idea. Okay, but fair enough. So see what I'm getting at, right, is the piloting skills are simply a result of the wiring of that person, right? So it doesn't matter how much you want to be a pilot, if you don't have the wiring to be a pilot, they're not going to give you the job, right? We all agree on that. You can disagree if you want. Jay, thank you. One person agrees, right? So the job of being a pilot is an effect. The wiring, your brain wiring, or the way your personality is the cause. So if you're a pilot, stop trying to be a pilot when you trade and think about why did they let you be a pilot in the first place? And Carl, if you're not sure, but I hired you, but like, you know, your heart rate should remain about the same. I'm 83, 82, 81. Every time I look at it, it goes down at the moment. So it's like you're a pilot and you want to bring the piloting skills to the job. That's not what you should bring to the job. You should bring the reasons they let you be a pilot to the job. Now, does that make sense to people? Yeah. So even if you're an accountant, don't take your accounting skills to the job. Take what it is that made you want to do it and made them give you the job to it, right? And you know what? You might even be in the wrong job for your worrying, not even know it, right? So here we go, right? Everybody out there wants to trade the S&P 500, regardless of the fact that COVID made it really a nutty market. So can somebody name any job? First person to name a job, we'll use that one. Any job. And I know it's going to be a smart ass, but let's work with that anyway. Engineer. Well, okay, Gordo, what kind of engineer? A petroleum engineer. Okay, so people working on oil rigs, stuff like that. Okay, electrical engineer. Yeah, well, good. Let's go. So let's say a petroleum engineer. Office engineer. Okay, so let's just say a petroleum engineer and you're or a chemical engineer, right? If you get to it, yeah, okay. Can we just say, Gordo, you get to say one type of engineer, put petroleum engineers work in offices. I don't know what they do. Okay, can we pick a job that I know let's pick a job that people know that they do. Or a CPA. Let's go back up. Accountant. Civil servant. Okay, let's go with so Gordo, what does a petroleum engineer do roughly? I think we should stick with petroleum engineer for the first one. Somebody looks for oil on maps. Okay, brilliant. That's a brilliant. I got it now. Okay. So let's say you're looking for petroleum on maps, right? You've got to have focus, right? So what would be the perks, or what would be the skills you would need? And you don't need to know this stuff. Like, let's just imagine, just look in your own head now. What would be the skills or the personality attributes that would help you? Yeah, geologist or petroleum engineer. What would be the skills or personality attributes that would help you? You'd have to be analytical, yeah. Spatial orientated as a seismic maps. Go on, carry on, people, yeah. Mathematical skills, yeah. Right? Ability to use a ruler. Thank you, Jay. That was great input. Really appreciate that. Right. Now, so we can say attention to detail. So yeah, you've got to be focused. You have to be analytical, mathematical. So those are the things. So if you had those skills, right? Black and white, not sure what that means, black and white. But you do have to make a call, right? You have to make a call, right? This or not. Knowledge of chemistry and biology. But yeah, that's not an inherent skill that you're born with, that knowledge. It's something you develop. Building rapport, right? So what about is there any downsides that we need to look at? The kind of people that do this thing, would they have any downsides? Like, because like I know there's some downsides for people who do what I do. I know people who can build massive computer systems and can't tie their shoelaces. But we can see all those things. So let's say you're a geologist, you could bring up a map, right? You could put up a map of the S&P 500 and try and use that map, or you could go back and look. I'm analytical. I can use a ruler. Thank you, Jay. Right? I'm good at planning. So those would be the skills that you would use, right? Now, let's say you were let's say you lived in an area. So you can use those skills, and then those skills are the things that you can bring to trading, right? Well, those are your skills. Those are your baseline skills. It's got nothing to do with your job, but those are your baseline skills you can use that you can bring to trading. So how would that? Well, yeah, I'd say that they're not really transferable. They're what you've got, right? Those are the skills you have, right? So you've got to find somehow a way to use your skills, not your job. So if you're an accountant, right, you're probably quite calm, right? Probably quite chilled. Probably don't. I don't know any accountants that bungee jump, right? But there could be some. But like the accountants I've worked with, very calm, very relaxed, don't like a lot of excitement, and so they should trade a slower market, right? Maybe they want time to do some numbers, or maybe they should trade end of like quarter reports, for example. So they're looking at like quarter reports for companies. Having some, given some expectation what the results might be for that quarter, and then the actuals come out, and they can say, well, blah, 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 and figure out, because they're doing accounts all the time, and figure out which way, if the market goes a certain way, whether that be a sustained move, right? So those are your kind of baseline skills. So for me, my baseline skills were in a lack of attention for long periods, but ability to kind of hyper focus for short periods. But I went short term, right? Now, if you lived in the Midwest in the US, what would be the best market to trade? Oil, possibly. Grain. Yeah. Grains. Yeah. Because it's a big area in grains. And what's going to affect grains? The weather. If you're a weatherman, which market should you trade? You should trade grains because a lot of the moves are based on the weather, right? And so these are like skills. So everybody comes in S&P 500. They're not thinking about, is this the market for me? They're not thinking about, is it moving at the pace I like? They're not thinking about, does it fit my skills? They're just saying, everybody else does that one and 99% lose. So I'll just do that one, right? Now, we all know weathermen are useless, about as good as economists, right? So, for me, I look at this, we've shown before, the way that trend, the thing that I the thing that I'm focusing on is trend, chop trend, pullbacks, that kind of thing. We've discussed it before, the way that markets switch out mode, but wheat might switch because of the weather or a weather report. And you're used to dealing with weather reports, and you might live in a rural area and you might be looking up in the sky and looking at the weather, and you might go out the door one morning and see frost on the ground and think, shit, wheat's in trouble because it's an early frost and we haven't cropped it yet. That's what makes you choose your market. But the problem is everybody here probably thinks, well, I don't have any of that. I haven't got one of those. Right? I'm just a normal person. I don't have any skills, but I think we all have skills. And I think what we have to do, and we could do a follow-up. We could do it if you're a porn star. If you're a porn star, I don't know. You're used to bad smells. I don't really know, man, if you're a porn star. I presume there's not much else you can do. I don't know if you're a porn star, but let's go with it. Let's say you're a male porn star, right? You're not going to be put off by people watching what you're doing. You're not going to be shy. You're not going to be, you're going to probably, I imagine, because I don't know if you know this, most men that apply to go on to porn roles cannot perform. Most men think, yeah, I'm going to go for an audition, and like everything downstairs doesn't work. So you know what? There is actually personality attributes to porn stars, because doing that in front of a bunch of people isn't easy. And it takes a certain, I think, lack of care or laissez-faire or whatever. So it's not a terrible example, although it is a terrible example. But anyway, there's a lot of markets and styles, man. And what you do and who you are not the same thing, right? Whatever your job is, man, that is not you. You are your attributes. Right now, I can tell you the book. There is a book, Tom, and it's a very dark comedy book about a boy who meets his mother while she's trying to break a certain record. Let's just say that. And that's when it was in that book I found that out. But what you do and who you are not the same thing. So basically, if you haven't really stood back and thought about this and what are my skills? What have I brought to the table? I know it's a boring topic for a trading webinar because everybody wants to know, where do I get in and where do I get out? But it's a really good thing to just try and figure out what your skills are. Now, many of you might need to knock off the dust that COVID put on top of you before you can move forward. So there is certainly for me, there was that February 28th, that 37-day detox I went on, which was 37 days away from my wife. with a really nice car and in the sunshine and loads of interesting people. It's a really good reset. For other people, it might just be going to a bungee jump and just try and knock that off, and then just have a think about what your skills are. Because I'm not saying you should change market. You might just be changing the way you trade. But if you're an accountant and an airline pilot, I don't believe you should trade the same way necessarily. I can't tell you how to trade it. I can only give you food for thought. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm an expert in every personality type and I can tell you what to do. What I can say is, if you're all just trading the S&P, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, does it make sense to you that everybody trades the S&P or the NASDAQ if we're all that different? But yeah, Steve, I think that's a good comment, Steve. Steve disagrees. He's saying It's really only one of the CME markets with good liquidity and volatility to trade small enough not to get wiped out. But I would say crude is better now. In that respect, I think crude's better than the S&P right now. I think crude, I mean, obviously with the micros, but I think, the S&P is, S&P is tough. But also you just make sure that, like, if you've got a lack of attention, then get off your ass and have a walk every 20 minutes. Right. So it's not just about which market, it's like which market, how many setups am I going to be looking for a day? I know people who can trade one setup a week. And I would actually jump, I'd actually jump out the window, but it's not very far down. So it wouldn't even do any good. But like people who trade one step a week, do you need a lot of setups? Should you scalp? Right. But you can't just do, just this idea that I'm going to find somebody who trades and follow them. That guy might be an airline. That guy might be a psychopath. Right. And no matter how much you can't be, and he might be a psychopath and literally not care about anything. Right. So I don't really have a message here, man. I mean, but just doing what everyone else does without considering your own like quirks and perks. We end down some strengths. That's what everybody's doing. And I don't know. Maybe we should do a follow-up email where people. In fact, let's do this. The next group therapy next month. I want some of you to have a think, and we'll go through a few emails, case studies, whatever you call it, where people have a bit of a reflection of what they're good at and what they're bad at. I don't need you to I don't need you to come to a conclusion. I just need to kind of listen to what, just your thoughts after hearing this. When FESX in the morning is dead in the afternoon, Stefan, that's somebody who likes slow markets, right? So Stefan, what did you do for a living? What do you do for a living? Because they're slow markets. IT engineer. Okay. And what kind of systems you're writing? So we've got two nerds on SAP. Oh. Two nerds writing ERP systems, which is like, it's kind of dull, but it paid really well, right? What adjustments have I applied to my style? Now I'm aware of my ADHD. None, because it wasn't it was actually one of the upsides. What I'm worried about now is medication, whether I take medication, and it's going to be, I mean, I had a bad day today because I didn't sleep last night and I was a bit bitey at work, but generally speaking, I've been better, but like, also I can't, there's a sleep thing as well. There's like, I can't sleep. Some nights I just can't sleep because my brain's on. Right. So, I might try a few things, but you don't lose the downside. But, if you're doing okay, just ignore everything I've said for the past hour. But if you've been in this years and struggling, I think you need to try and figure your own head out, But so Mad Luke, I mean, look, this is great. Look, Mad Luke saying, I'm probably happiest with a fast-paced market and plenty of setups in a short time. But not just that, look at the name he gave himself. He gave himself the name Mad Luke, right? So you can kind of see there's a personality thing there. I mean, who a CPA probably wouldn't call himself Mad Luke. Now, Mad Luke, what was your career? Please don't say you're an accountant. You're a salesman turned project manager. Right. Okay. So salesmen are very active and they have to and very reactive as well. The salesman is very reactive because you're in a situation where you're trying to listen and trying to figure out if you've got something, the whole lot of sales is really misunderstood. You think it's about convincing people to do something that they don't want to do. It's actually about empathizing with that person, creating rapport, and actually seeing if you've got a product for them, and then creating enough rapport where you can actually convince them that you've got something that will help them. Right. So that's Mad Luke. So he's an on the ball thinking all the time as he's doing his stuff. And he's settled on a fast paced market. But what if he'd just done a course on a slow paced market and tried to fit himself to that? What if Mad Luke had tried to trade the 2-year treasuries, which moves like 3 ticks a day, Oh, Stephen, you should try meditate. Oh, that's funny. You should tell somebody with ADHD to meditate. I can't sit still for 5 minutes. I can actually relax now, but I could not meditate. But so what we should do, what I'd like to do, and I will send out an email for this, is I'd like to have some people just observe their own quirks and perks, and then next month we'll do like a rehash of this webinar where we'll actually look at people and how they've matched their personality type, but also people who can understand their personality type and haven't matched it. So when I say personality type, and Gonzalo, remind me to send an email tomorrow. But basically, when I'm in personality type, he's like, your attributes. What are your good attributes, your bad attributes? If you've got a short temper, that's fine. Say you've got a short temper. If you're like lovely and giving and you think you're like Mother Teresa, then say that. And it'd be really interesting to get some of those attributes and see if we can match them with the market you trade and see if we can get any crossover. So Gonzalo.
Yep.
Yeah, we should do this in SurveyMonkey. So guys, you'll be what's the word? Nobody will know who you are. You'll be incognito. Would you be okay doing if we put together a SurveyMonkey survey which basically asked you about personality attributes and the markets you trade, and then we come back and look at it next week? Well, that's perfect. And has anybody got anything to add at this point? Because that was kind of more like a webinar than a group therapy. So William's saying, after 2 years focusing on XXNS, I'm now just beginning to find better success in FX futures and crude. And they move nicely. Now, it'd be lovely. Now, it'd be nice, William, to kind of understand, like, what your personality type is and see if other personality types are like that. But it's going to be like, I'm going to need help. Have we got our resident psychologist in here? Mark, can you help us with this? Because there's absolutely no way you're going to be able to do this on my own. Because I can't. We couldn't make the survey ourselves. I don't know what, Mark. I don't know what I need. But I need help putting together the questions for the survey, so we can like kind of pigeonhole people a little bit and see what they trade. Let's see if we can see any chat. All right, so I'll chat later. So does anybody have anything to say after that? Because I'm done, but you can carry on. Well, I think we're done at this point. What careers have I seen make the best traders? No career. The best traders I've seen have not had a career to start with, but musicians, sports people with sporting backgrounds do well because they understand what it takes to get good at something. Whereas, so that is what, and again, maybe we can build that into. But so Mark as well. How far off am I on ADHD? Because I've got no training in this whatsoever. Give him a minute to reply. Yeah, and absolutely, and it is obviously a lot more complicated than making it, because like I've just spoke to somebody and I'm trying to I'm interpreting my own experience, and maybe Mark can talk about that next time. But yeah, so we'll do. So next month we'll try and do a little experiment where we follow on from this and try and figure out if we can categorize a few personality types in the markets and the success level they're having, and just see if there is something there. And but I would like to thank you all for coming, and I'd like to say I do apologize that there hasn't been a group therapy for a while, but I needed to go to Fat Camp. And Fat Camp's great. And by the way, if you need to know the Fat Camp name, it's a place called New Leaf Wellness. Let's see if I can find New Leaf Wellness. A place called New Leaf Wellness. This is where I was. This was the place I was imprisoned for a month. It's absolutely beautiful. It is lovely place, great pool, full of fat people. It's fantastic. I think that was my room, actually. This was my room that I stay in. It's the same room I stay in every month. But it's really a really lovely place to go. And if you can afford to do it and take a month off, it's just such a great life reset. And, like Mark's saying, there's a lot of scale of intensity conditions. Some are mild, some are off the scale. I don't know where I am. I'm not sure I want to know. But I would like to say thank you all for listening. And there will be another one next month. And Gonzalo will work with Mark, put together a survey. And thank you all for listening. I really appreciate when people turn up to events that are not just about where do you get in and where do you get out. And so thank you very much, guys. And the recording will be up tomorrow. So thank you and good night.